Carolyn Shavino, and welcome to the world of work, Aurora. Today, I have an amazing guest who is going to take us through his work journey. And the key thing I would love for everyone to listen to here is you are not stuck into any type of work that you begin with. And a perfect example of what we're going to unravel here is Richard DeVoe, author. And I welcome you, Richard.
Thank you so much for having me, Carolyn. It's really, truly a delight to be here.
Well, I am very, very happy that you're here. Richard's going to talk about his book in a little bit, but as always, I want Richard to please take us through your work journey. This show is about what's happening in the world of work. And I know that you started out in the trades, correct?
I did. Like most 17, 18-year-olds, when they get out of high school, you really don't know what you're going to do, what you want to do. So I had worked a summer job at a factory. And when I graduated, I went to work there full time. I started out in the shipping room for a couple of years, and then there was an opportunity to become a tool and die maker.
Wow.
And I took that and worked there for about 11 years. But I knew that that wasn't really my calling.
Okay.
And so I started, 2 years after high school, I got married. Jenny and I are still married 51 years later.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. And I had an interest in advertising in particular.
Interesting.
The company I was at, the executive vice president, for some reason I caught his eye. And he asked me, he said, what would you like to do? He asked me, he said, do you write as well as you speak?
Wow, right? What a compliment.
And I said, well, I hadn't thought about that. In fact, I would think that if you've got more time to think about what you're going to say, you can probably write better than you speak, right? And he asked me what I wanted, what I was interested in. And I said, I've been thinking about advertising.
Yeah.
It was intriguing to me. And he said, well, the next time our ad agency comes up here, I'll set up a meeting. You guys can chat and see what happens. So we did that. I met with the account executive at this agency. They were based in Connecticut, and I'm from Massachusetts, so this was all taking place in Massachusetts. And within 15, 20 minutes, he said, I want to take this further. I'd like you to come down to the agency, spend a day, meet all of my department heads, ask them any questions you want. And he did that. And so we went, we had lunch. He literally had a 3-martini lunch.
Oh, well.
And then during that, he said to me, you're probably wondering why I'm doing this. I said, yeah. He said, well, somebody did something similar for me.
Oh, how wonderful.
And I want to pay it forward.
Okay.
So that was really the kickstart I needed. At this time, I had been in college now at night, working full-time during the day. The kids were coming.
Very rough.
Taking on a couple of courses a semester. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
But I had a goal. I had an objective. I never got my degree, but I did deplete the marketing department's curriculum at Bentley University in Massachusetts. And that led to basically my putting together in the creative side of advertising and marketing, you have to have a portfolio. They need to see what you can do.
Okay.
And now if you've never had a job, putting together a portfolio is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so how do you do that?
But the Ad Club of Boston had a course in basically how to put together your first portfolio. So the meetings were once a week, the course was once a week, and they gave you an assignment.
Wonderful.
And so you came back the following week with the ads that you did and presented them. And by the time the course was done, within, I think it was a 6 or 8 week course, you had a body of work. So I then began to take that around to different ad agencies and met with creative directors And one thing led to the next. I had some people say to me, "Oh, with your background, you should go to this agency in New Hampshire. They've got technical and industrial clients. Because of your background, I think it would be a good fit." I did that, and that was my first job. So I changed careers from a tool and die maker to becoming an advertising copywriter at the age of 29.
And you said yes to it. That's the beautiful thing. You walked through the fear of trying something new. You were in school. You had children on the way.
Oh, yeah.
And my goodness, working full time, and you still walked through the fear. You still said, yes, I think I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And when you went to that advertising agency that day and you just took a look around before the liquid lunch, I mean, what types of things, just gathered your interest? What did you see? I've never been in an ad agency. Give me a visual.
What I saw was just, well, if you've watched Mad Men,
yes,
at all, it was very much like that. There was an environment where they had clients and they were solving problems for clients, marketing and advertising problems. FootJoy was one of their clients, and they were working on a campaign for a new golf shoe.
Wow.
And I got to see some of what they were doing. I met with the creative director. I met with the media director. I met with the head of the client services group. And as I said, I was just full of questions. Some of them probably silly, but to them anyway, but not to me.
Exactly.
But that really lit my fire.
Good.
I said, this is something I'd like to do. And then, 40 years later.
Do you think it was because it was different?
It was not. Yes, it was different. It was very different from what I was doing. I was working on while it was a very hands-on trade.
Yeah.
Which did require an 8-year apprenticeship. So it was very, very detailed. There was a lot of things to learn, and highly skilled. It just was not really where my heart lied, and
exactly.
I knew that. But there was something about, in particular, writing.
Okay.
That intrigued me. It was just, there was a desire, there was a hunger there.
You tapped into your skills.
That I did.
Yes.
I was very fortunate in that regard, and it was very fortunate to have, somebody like this executive vice president kind of recognize that I wasn't the typical guy in the shop, that there was something different.
Well, apparently it was how you articulated, that, as you said earlier, it was how you spoke.
Right.
That really, distinguished you from, I guess, the rest of the folks that were there. But really, it sounds too that the gentleman also was looking to pay it forward, as you said.
Yep.
And sometimes when we look to pay it forward, I know with myself, I look to pay it forward with individuals that I know are going to at least try to learn from it, or or feel challenged in it, and want to give it a try, and not just say, okay, thanks, yeah, no thanks, but to really work it, right? And he saw that in you, apparently.
He did, and I'm very grateful. But after that, in the intro, it really was up to me to put the work in, to learn what I'm such I think by nature, just an insatiable appetite for what's new, for new information, for research, for anything I'm interested in, I dive in headlong, which is interesting because that's how I became a painter.
Tell us about the painting.
I had been writing for a number of years, but felt a tug to do something that wasn't writing as a creative outlet.
Okay.
Now, I had drawn since I was a child. In fact, in 5th grade, I remember we were into dinosaurs then.
Of course.
And all the kids were asking me to draw dinosaurs for them,
Yeah.
you know. And after we were married, my father-in-law, who was a chemical engineer, but he was also an amazing watercolor painter
Okay.
and a poet. And so as we would go down to New Jersey for the holidays with the kids, I would make a beeline for his studio and his amazing library of art books. And I'd be immersed in those.
Yeah.
So that was kind of always sort of feeding in my background. Around the age of, I was in my late 20s now.
Yeah.
And I had an art director that I had worked with for about 6 years at an agency.
Okay.
In the advertising world, they pair a writer and an art director. You work as a team.
Okay.
One, the word guy, the picture guy. And one of them, he got his degree in painting. And I brought my work to him every once in a while, show him what I was doing. The last time I did that, he just went nuts. He
What
said,
was it?
It
What
was
was
a
the art
body of
piece?
it was a body of work with a lot of texture and color. It was based on some photography that I had done. Photography was my entree into the visual arts.
Okay.
It was something I just gravitated to, you know, from the early 70s on.
Yeah.
One of the guys in the factory was a photographer, and I bought my first camera from him. And that was a good training ground for how to see things visually. Through the lens, you are composing an
Yeah.
image, you know, balancing, and you know what pulls your eye in.
Okay.
What color it kind of tends to do. So it was a good basic learning experience for later becoming a painter. But I brought this work to him. And he said, galleries are looking for this kind of stuff. He said,
Wow.
you should take this seriously.
Was it abstract?
It was based on a photo that I had won an award with, which
Okay.
was a reflection in a mud puddle.
What?
A car had driven through a dirt road and it left a big a puddle, and you could see the trees and the sky in it, and it just.
And that's where your eye went.
And that's where my eye went. I tended to go to the macro, to the little things, to insects, to a blade of grass holding a water droplet. I tended to really focus on those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so I did a whole series of paintings kind of based on that, very textured. I actually built up the surfaces and would run a real tire over them
Okay.
to make an imprint.
Sure, sure.
And he just absolutely went crazy, and including some drawings I had done. So about 2 weeks or so later, he told me that the studio next to him in the Arts District of Boston had opened up, and that I should call the landlord and get the space.
Look at this timing. Wow.
So I did.
Yeah.
And I was in that studio for 12 years. Now, having a space that wasn't my cramped basement to work,
Yeah.
kind of really also gave me the impetus to just work.
So now, were you living off of your artwork at this point, or
No.
were you still okay?
No, I'm still working, full time as a
Okay.
copywriter and creative director.
Okay.
But painting had become an additional passion. And I was at the studio, much to Jenny's chagrin, my wife, probably every day or at least most days, after work, evenings.
Sure.
The kids were wondering, where's Dad? In any event, it enabled me to create a body of work.
Yeah.
Within just a few months, I had a gallery pick me up and begin to represent me.
Outstanding.
Most visual artists, painters, photographers, it's difficult to make a living as a visual artist. It's a very small percentage that can do that solely.
Mm-hmm.
Most are doing other jobs, which is why, the old adage where you'll find artists and
Starving
actors
artists.
they're serving coffee.
Yes, indeed. Same with musicians.
Musicians, it really does run the whole gamut
Yes, it does.
regardless of the art medium that you work in. So that continued on the same track as my working in advertising. Now I spent 20 years working in the commercial ad agencies, and for clients like Red Lobster and Marriott Hotels and Ducati motorcycles and some others.
Nice.
And then after about 20 years of doing that, I had a friend of mine who also another art director go to an agency that served nonprofits. And he said to me, he says, "Rich, you need to come up here. We need to concept together, and I want you as my partner."
Yeah.
So I went up as a freelancer, and I had an epiphany.
Was this still out east?
Oh yes,
Okay.
This was actually in southern New Hampshire.
Okay.
And the epiphany I had was that I can take all of the skills and talents that I have as a writer, as a strategist, as a creative director, and I can actually help organizations that are making a difference in the world.
Yes.
So I worked for Christian Ministries. I worked for Wounded Warrior, for American Red Cross, for the list of nonprofits that I worked for the following 20 years it's 3 pages long.
I'm sure. And what specifically did you do for them? Did you do their ads? Did you do their artwork?
It was primarily fundraising.
Okay.
And there was some branding too. There was when you are presenting, just like a corporate environment, a nonprofit has a brand and has a presence, and also competes with other nonprofits. So the background, the marketing background, really fed the ability to differentiate this organization, to help brand it. But more than that, most nonprofits absolutely need funds,
Yes.
and fundraising is a huge part of that.
Yes.
So the first agency that I worked for did the really smart thing. He actually put the entire agency through Indiana University has a College of Philanthropy.
Okay.
Because the whole agency was going to take this certificate course in the fundamentals of fundraising, they sent the teacher up to New Hampshire. So the course was about a week long, and the notebook I ended up with was literally about 5 inches thick.
My goodness.
But it gave me a basic foundation in fundraising.
Sure.
So that I could see where it was similar to marketing and where it differentiated.
Mm-hmm.
And that began the next 20-year journey with developing strategies for different kinds of donors. Major donors require a different tactic than your lowercase giving donors,
Sure.
your lower giving donors. So that language I became, it had to be part of my creative strategy as a creative director and as a writer.
Right. And what brought you to this wonderful Midwest area?
In 2005, there was an ad agency that was serving Christian Ministries.
Okay.
I connected with them. They asked me to move out here. It was a big leap.
I am sure.
Yeah, again, the kids were pretty much off on their own at this point.
Oh, okay. That helps.
Yeah. And so I said to my wife, I said, I really feel this is where we need to go next. It took Jenny about 8 months to join me.
Okay.
And so she finally did. And we will eventually probably go back east.
Okay.
We are New Englanders at heart.
Sure.
Her family still has a place on a lake in New
Mhm.
Hampshire that we get out to it, at least once or twice a year.
I think there's something to be said about going home,
Yeah,
even though this is now your home.
right.
People share that with me all the time, and I say, when they ask me, okay, so when you retire, where are you going to move? Nowhere. This is my home.
Hmm.
I'm a Chi-Town girl.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I like to go out east,
Mhm.
cherry blossom time. It's absolutely stunning. I love to go to warm climates sometimes, but I am a Midwest girl.
Hmm.
I truly am. So I understand
Yeah.
how you feel. Like you
Yeah.
want to go home someday.
Well, and most of our kids are there. They're all
Yeah.
on the East Coast. My granddaughter's out there.
Yeah.
Our youngest lives with us, and my grandson, who is now 18, and we've been raising him.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably come east with us.
Beautiful.
Uh,
How do we
we're a few
get-
years away, but
Well, it comes up fast.
yeah, it does.
It does. How did you get into writing? What was that spark?
Um,
I mean, obviously you wrote,
yeah.
but I mean to actually think of publishing a
Well-
book, Richard.
Well, I had dabbled in some screenwriting. I had a,
I keep learning more and more. Wait, pause.
yes.
Tell me about the screenwriting, please.
I wrote a screenplay based on the life of an artist that intrigued me, and I submitted it to the Academy Awards. Folks have a screenwriting competition.
Okay.
It's called the Nickel Fellowship,
Are you all listening to this?
and
you
it's
fellow writers?
probably the creme de la creme of screenwriting competitions.
Okay.
They get somewhere around 8,000 entries every
Wow.
year. So to make it to my script made it to the top 20%. I was one favorable read away from becoming a quarterfinalist. But to go from 7,000 to about 700,
That's great.
I was pleased.
Yeah.
But the idea of writing a novel, I have to tell you, Carolyn, had always been somewhat overwhelming to me to even consider. So about 3 years ago, between jobs, the idea for this book, I have a few that have been rolling around in my head. This one was sparked by, I've got a younger brother who lives on Cape Cod, and he volunteered to refurbish a lighthouse.
Okay.
Somebody bought this lighthouse, and so he called me up one day and he says to my brothers, I'm Rick. So Rick, he said, you're good at research. He said, we've got we're working on this lighthouse. The light goes out 3 miles, but when it was originally built, it went out 13.
Oh.
Are there companies that still build these things? And can you help me find out? So I did, and found out that most of them are here in the Midwest.
Okay.
The Great Lakes have probably more lighthouses than either coast now.
Nice to know.
So I gave him the name of a couple of companies, and he did that. What that did for me was I began to think, lighthouses have this incredible reputation for being guides and comfort and help for sailors. And now my twisted brain said, how could somebody use that for something bad? Hence my antagonist in this book uses lighthouses to cause great harm and damage. So that was the spark. But 3 years ago, again, between jobs, I said, I have some time. Let's give it a go.
Why not now?
Why not? So here's the thing that really, really sparked the novel for me and the writing of the novel. As I began to write, now I didn't have an outline. I kind of knew where I wanted it to go. I sort of knew where I wanted it to end, but everything that was happening in between was happening as I'm writing it.
Wow.
So that felt very familiar to me because that's what happens when I paint.
Okay.
You do something to the canvas. It says, I want this. You have a dialogue with the work.
Okay.
I discovered it was rather an epiphany that same process takes place when I'm writing the novel. And any artist of any medium will tell you the finished work is great, but it's all about the process. It's all about being engaged in the work.
Yeah.
It's all about solving the problems as they present themselves. Because really, creativity at its heart is really problem solving.
Again,
Sure.
what do you mean? It's problem solving.
When you're faced with, you do something on the painting,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I don't like that. It needs something.
I
What?
see. Okay.
What does it need? Well, I don't know. Let's try this. Nope, that's not working. You are basically solving, the problem that's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with writing, marketing, fundraising, and advertising.
Yeah.
You've got an objective. You have a strategy, and that's a problem you now have to solve. How do we solve that in the most creative, impactful way that's still on point, that's still on strategy?
Yeah.
So it's another problem to solve.
It just all flows and falls together. It
Yeah.
truly does. Did you experience writer's block? I hear about that all the time, writer's block.
I have yet,
Okay.
and I'll tell you probably why. When you have to write to a deadline,
Okay.
and it doesn't matter how you feel, you may or may not be inspired. The deadline is driving what you need to do. So that discipline for 4 decades kind of informed that writing of the novel.
I see.
And what I've discovered is that if you do hit a block, if you hit something that's not working, or if you're not really in the mood, sit down and write anyway. And what you start writing or painting might look like gobbledygook in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but then in the process of engaging with the work, the creativity kind of meets you.
Yeah. And I think with all of that, what you're saying, it truly lends to being pulled in to your book because, as you said, it's coming from within. It's nonstop. It's
Right.
not something that you thought about and you're tweaking a script or whatever. You're writing as you go. You're developing a story
Right.
and you're creating this amazing masterpiece because that's what you're feeling in that moment.
Right.
And I think that when things are thought out, being a musician, when I think too much about, I'm a guitarist, so when I think too much about putting my chords together, and I think too much, oh, there should be a bridge here, I write so much better when I just let it go.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered, how do you get from point A to point B? I have a small little snippet of a prayer book that I wrote, but nothing like this. This to me looks daunting, to really sit back and, because I guess that's just not my flow. It's not.
Right.
And you have shared with me also that you have a second book on the horizon.
Yes. This is, while it's complete, I do kind of leave a little window open.
Yeah.
And the second book, which I have finished the first draft of, it kind of resolves that. And the main character here, Eve Tiant, is going to become a series. I'm gonna continue to put her in different situations and kind of continue to tell more stories with her and probably some of the other folks as characters in the novels to come.
That's wonderful. Do you think perhaps it could be a television series at one point being picked up?
I've had a number of people tell me it reads like a movie.
Okay.
And the reason for that is it flowed like that for me. I think any writer, you're seeing what you're describing. You're seeing what you're hearing in your mind's eye. And I will say that as a musician, putting in all of the time and the hours of practice
Yeah.
then enables you to just create.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with writing. You know, there's a discipline, there's a craft. Same thing with painting. You need to really learn your craft
Right.
and put in, and sometimes, I mean, the old saying is 10,000 hours. It's probably pretty accurate.
I believe that.
So there's no substitute for learning your craft, for practicing, for gaining the skills that you need.
Right.
Because then they serve you. You're not thinking about, you know, do I put a period or a dash here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not thinking about, you know, what note to hit next, because you intuitively know.
Exactly. It just
It flows. But it flows out of that preparation that you've put in.
Yeah.
I read somebody say recently that for a writer, reading is like practicing scales for a musician.
Okay. I could see
So,
that.
Yeah. And you've probably also heard a lot, writers will say, or the adage tends to be, write what you know. I disagree. Write what you love.
Wonderful.
You can pick up what you don't know.
Wonderful.
If you write what you love, the passion comes out.
I agree. I find that with my music.
Yeah.
I find whatever mood that I'm in, and typically I'll grab the guitar at least, well, once a day. And it's just what I do. And it just gives me peace.
Yeah.
But it depends on my mood,
Yep.
on what's going to come out.
Yep.
Exactly. And sometimes it's bluesy,
Yep.
sometimes it's jazzy, and sometimes it's just chords.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I would love to just end with advice that you would give folks of all ages, Richard. You know, I mean, your journey is just outstanding, and how you started in manufacturing and you felt this calling. And of course, you've had individuals, you know, that have been placed, I believe, by a higher power.
I do.
And I just feel like if you could share one thing or a couple of things really on how to just remove that fear, no matter what age you are. As I hear many times from friends in my generation, I wish I could write a book. I wish I could. I wish I could.
Right.
How do you take away that I wish? You've done that. How do you just get it out of the mind and just do?
Well, if you think about what's the worst that can happen, right?
Right.
I'm at the easel. I have a canvas, and it's like a blank canvas staring at you. Oh, what's the worst that can happen? Well, if it comes out looking like crap, you paint over it and start over.
Yeah, yes.
What's the worst that can happen if you sit down to write and what you're writing doesn't move you? It's not good. Well, you can delete it and start over.
Right.
When you consider what's the absolute worst that can happen, right? And then you say, really nothing dangerous, nothing life-threatening.
Exactly.
So why is that fear there? I also think that any creative endeavor, any endeavor really, once you have some success, it feeds the next. You become less fearful because you've tried something and it worked, or you've tried something and it failed, but you learned from it and you tried something else or tried again and you succeeded. So there is
good points.
There is again, if you just consider what's the worst that can happen.
Agreed.
Right? And if it comes out to be crap, you're not showing it to anybody.
Right.
You know?
Start again. Start again.
You just start over.
Yes.
And I will say that whatever you want to do, there is so much information available. We live in an information age like never before.
Yes, I love it.
You Google any subject, any topic,
yes,
and you'll be lost for days in the content that you'll get. So if whatever your interest may be, begin to explore it.
And I just want to end with one thing to the audience with AI, and I use it and I love it.
Hmm.
But to write, I think, a paper for school, it's helpful. But to truly write a masterpiece, it's not authentic unless you put yourself, as you said,
Yes.
pen, paper, write
Hmm.
from here.
Right.
Because many times I'm reading these days, oh, you can write a book in a week.
Hmm.
And then, just, go into AI and just let
hit
it
the
know
right
what you want,
prompts.
but it's not you.
Right.
So I don't see how I would be able to feel the emotion from a robot
Hmm.
as I would a human writing
Right.
the book.
Yeah.
Would you not agree?
I agree. In fact, while AI is incredible and you
It
can do
is.
incredible things with it, it still lacks, it's still not human.
Right.
And it can only come with the prompts that you put in it and whatever it can gain from the ether.
Yeah.
But it still can't transpose that with feelings, with emotion, with life experience,
Yes.
with the things that you when you're writing a novel, you're not only describing what's happening, you're describing what people are hearing, what they're feeling, what they're
Yes.
thinking, what they're smelling.
And that's what you're feeling back.
Yeah, right.
Because you're transmitting that.
Yeah.
That's it's a give and take. But I want to thank you for sharing your journey. I want to thank you for who you are.
Oh,
I want to
Carolyn.
thank you for seriously sharing. And many people who have come from manufacturing and, they kind of put that to the back and they don't want to talk about that. But that helped you become who you are. Those experiences put you
Right.
in a position to be recognized,
Mhm.
but you still learned, you still had an expertise in working those tools and it's difficult work.
It can be. Right.
Yes.
And I think we were talking earlier, today there is such a shortage
Oh, yes,
of
there
people
is.
in the trades.
Yes.
And it pays extremely well.
Mhm.
If I were to start over, I might consider remaining in the trades.
Beautiful. I'd love to
Um,
hear that.
Yeah, because it's a great way to make a living.
Yes.
You are as highly skilled as somebody who sits at a desk.
Thank you. Yes.
You come with the same experience and knowledge that really any professional has.
Will you do me a favor? Next semester, I've been asked to go into some of the Aurora high schools, and I would love if you would join me
Oh, sure.
and talk to the students about your own personal journey
Mm-hmm.
into the trades, and what you learned from it, and
Yeah.
just what you said in this moment. You may consider actually going back if you were to do it over again.
Yeah. Primarily because there's such a shortage.
Yes, there is.
You can make a very nice living in the trades now.
And it takes talent and precision.
Yes.
All of those wonderful gifts that we have.
Training. My grandson, who is about to graduate high school, is
Yeah.
considering becoming an electrician, and
I applaud
I'm
that.
all for it.
Yes, I applaud that
I'm all for it.
100%. Well, thank you, sir.
Well,
I
thank you for
greatly
having me,
appreciate
Carolyn.
you so much, Richard. And as I ask, would you come back
I'd be happy to come back.
when you
This was
write that
delightful.
second book?
Oh, sure.
I would love, 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 love for the folks to, get a firsthand look at the book and firsthand idea of where that idea came from. I know it's a succession of this book, but still, it's different. It's going to have a twist, I'm quite sure. I can see from that
Oh, yeah.
smile. But anyway, I just want to thank you all for joining us today or whenever you view this wonderful broadcast. I want to thank Aurora Cable TV Network and the wonderful folks that do an amazing job making sure that the cable network runs smoothly. They're so talented, They're wonderful, wonderful engineers. And again, just thank you. Thank you for being here. And again, what's happening in the world of work, Aurora? Until next time.